On my 70th birthday, I received a notice from the Alliance Marriage Administration Bureau. Hello, Helen. You have 3 applications for remarriage here. Please handle them. The first message came from my first love. He and I supported each other and walked out of the lower city. But when I was 26 years old, he cheated on me for his future. The second message came from my ex-husband. He was extremely handsome, but there was always a white moonlight in his heart that he could never forget. The third message came from my ex-husband. He was a caring younger wolf dog. It's just that young people play a bit wild. Even after marriage, he still called me a casual partner. I clicked reject for all of them. But then I received a call from the Administration Bureau again. I was a bit annoyed. I don't accept remarriage from anyone. No. Helen. What we received here is a marriage application. From Marshall Leon. My hand trembled. After all, the reputation of this Marshall Leon is known to everyone. But he had already sacrificed himself for the country. The person on the other end of the phone continued. I'm very sorry. Due to the time wormhole, this application was delayed by 50 years and was only received by us today. When I received the notice from the Administration Bureau, I was taking a nap on a lounge chair. This year's spring came very early. There are already trendy young people on the street wearing sleeveless short skirts. I looked enviously at the fluttering colorful skirt and tightened my woolen sweater. Alas! I'm getting more and more afraid of the cold. Even a spring breeze with just a little chill can make me stay in bed for several days. But there's no way. After all, I am already 70 years old. So after receiving that call, I subconsciously looked at the calendar. The 6th day of the 2nd month. It's the beginning of spring, not April Fool's Day. The staff of the Administration Bureau had an excellent service attitude. There was no shock in their tone when stating. It seemed that it was perfectly normal for a 70-year-old woman to receive 3 remarriage applications in one day. I opened those 3 applications with a headache. As expected, they were all acquaintances. After all, the only people who could propose remarriage to me were my 3 ex-husbands who had divorced me. But why did they all want to remarry me? I looked at the face in the mirror. Gray hair, sagging skin, hunched shoulders, and not very clear eyes. It was an ordinary old lady. Those who couldn't be kept when I was young and beautiful. How could they turn back when I am in my twilight years? This is really so fucking strange. Too helplessly, I dialed a number. But the call was automatically intercepted. Hello. This is the Alliance Central Department. If you have any needs, please leave a message first. I sighed. Look at me. How could I forget? I changed to another number. This time it was connected. Hello? Luke's voice hadn't changed much. Only there was a little less clarity and a little more dignity. I got straight to the point. Luke. What's the matter with the remarriage application? There was first silence on the other end. Then he was a bit incoherent. Helen. I didn't expect it to be you. I'm very glad you still remember this number. Having seen Luke's gone speeches on TV, for a moment it made me a bit dazed. No one knows that the current Alliance chief is actually a former stutterer. I had no intention of chatting with him. I repeated again. Did you submit the remarriage application? Yes. I held my head in pain. Withdraw it. No. He refused sullenly. But his tone was unexpectedly firm. I was so angry that I laughed. What on earth are you trying to do? Luke? I want to remarry you. I want to be with you. His voice was very low and also with determination. I sneered. Luke. So did you divorce Minister Byway? If I remember correctly, your grandson is already old enough to go to the military academy this year, right? There was suddenly silence on the other end. I sneered. Or is there still some use value for me? An old woman alone, so that you, as the chief, can climb higher? There was a dull sound from there. After a long time, he said dryly. No. Chiwo-e. You have always been more important than power. I chuckled. This sentence wasn't believed by Helen at 26. Helen at 70 will not believe it even more. 3. I angrily hung up the phone. Damn Luke. What kind of old age madness is he having? It even made my blood pressure rise. Before I could take the antihypertensive medicine, another call came. Sean's voice was like a gentle wind and rain. Helen, the magnolias in the yard are blooming. The curse words on my lips turned around and were swallowed back. There was no way. Sean's voice was as irresistible as his face. When he saw that I didn't speak, he said again, "You always liked magnolias, didn't you? There were also a few ginseng roots sent from Yunlong Star last month. I'll bring them to you together." His words were familiar and considerate. Just like a husband who had been with me for many years. There was no distance of several decades between us at all. I sighed softly. "What's the matter with the remarriage application?" He didn't answer. He only said, "I remember your lumbar injury has recurred again. Right? I'll bring the physiowebshirley instrument over then." A familiar feeling of suffocation filled my heart again. I didn't understand. Why did Sean always avoid problems every time? It was like this when I was 30. And after living for another 40 years, it was still like this. I was too lazy to wait for him to speak. "Then I'll hang up." Just then, he finally spoke. "Helen, Gu Ying passed away last month." "Oh," I responded. There was a sense of relief in my heart as if it was expected. And I suddenly understood the reason for his remarriage. One of the options that troubled him was gone. Then the indecisive him could finally make a proper decision. But 40 years have passed. Why should I, as an alternative, wait for him in the same place? For after hanging up Sean's call, the doorbell rang again. I looked up to the sky and sighed. What a bunch of ancestors. They still come with the whole chasing whites crematorium thing in their old age. I really can't understand it. I opened the door. Sure enough, it was Jay, my youngest husband. Jay outside the door was tall and straight. His handsome eyebrows and eyes were not weathered by years. Instead, it gave him more dignity. He held a bunch of passionate flowers and smiled brightly. Surprise! This season's Mart roses. I didn't feel surprised. Only felt shocked. I covered my nose and sneezed several times hard. Sorry. I was diagnosed with rhinitis the year before last. Jay held the bunch of flowers. There was a bit of helplessness in his eyes. Sorry. His eyes were red. Alas. He who is naturally flamboyant always has an unbridled passion no matter when. But this passion is always so inappropriate when it comes to me. Jay was indeed the most considerate. Without me asking, he took the initiative to speak. I want to remarry you," I said with a smile. "What? After playing for 30 years? Are you finally settling down?" Jay's tears fell. I didn't. From the day you divorced me, I realized. Stop. You know I don't want to hear it. At 60, one knows one's destiny. I don't care about these things anymore. His tears fell more and more. But I really want to be with you again. Well, I thought about it too. His eyes were extremely red. The hand holding the flowers also trembled slightly. I wasn't lying to him. I really wanted to be with him once. On the day when the Alliance military department decided to sacrifice the people in the lower city despite my firm opposition. General Du. They are just commoners. How can they be compared with the rights and interests of the Alliance? I fired 3 shots in succession at the meeting. Whoever agrees will have to step over my body first. But the next day, the Alliance still issued this resolution. On the resolution, Luke's name was clearly written. I numbly returned home. But I saw Sean gently coaxing Gu Ying, who looked sickly. Before I could even question, I saw Sean cover his nose. There's too much blood smell on you. Maybe go out and wash first. When I was helpless and had nowhere to turn, Jai appeared. At that time, he was just an intern who had just joined the military department. After hearing that resolution, he directly carried a sniper rifle and broke into the parliamentary hall. Everyone was astonished. But he raised his eyebrows. Then he shot through the parliamentary flag. What bullshit! You make massacres sound so noble. Have you forgotten the original oath of the Alliance? That is not to abandon any citizen. Although he was beaten so hard by General G that he couldn't get up later. But this resolution was finally revoked. Everyone was praising his fearless youth. But this star of the Alliance dragged his injured leg and whined and acted spoiled in front of me. You. Are you happy now? The young man was too sincere. It gave me infinite courage. Like the wind in the wilderness. As long as one gets close, one can reach freedom. But sincere young people are always passionate. But also always restless. He will like flamboyant red. And he will also like gentle white. He knows that love is prosperity and noise. But he doesn't know that love is also staying together. It is silence. And it is even more ordinary. So he quickly got tired. In the colorful box. The pitiful accompanying girl shrank in Jay's arms. The tears on her cheeks were about to fall but not falling. Young Master G's anger for his beloved will surely be another beautiful talk on the Star Network's Hot Search tomorrow. Just like last time when he abducted the noble lady who was about to get married through an alliance. And like the time before last. He took the innocent princess of the royal family to Yuanxing to watch the Aurora storm all night. And there are too many times. All of them are comparable to his act of stopping that resolution for me. I quietly watched this scene. There was no ripple in my heart. I was just thinking. Why was I here? It will be 12 o'clock in the morning soon. If I don't sleep soon, I will have a headache tomorrow. After thinking this through, I immediately turned and left. Jay's voice came from behind. What wife? She's just one of my casual partners. 5 after seeing Jay off. I looked at the calendar warily. Sure enough. Today was an unlucky day. I immediately ordered a cup of milk tea for myself. No sugar. Add 2 servings of high-calcium milk. Well, perfect. But what came earlier than the takeout was a call from the Alliance Administration Bureau. I was almost going crazy. I said I won't remarry. Can you stop disturbing me? Dear? The person on the other end apologized repeatedly. Then said, No. Helen, here's the thing. We received a marriage application related to you. I was completely speechless. Is this a new scam idea? The person on the other end was extremely cautious. No. And this application has the highest security permission. Because it comes from Marshal Leon. What? I was so shocked that my dentures almost fell out. Not because this marshal is so famous and known to everyone. On the daily interstellar news broadcast. The promotional cover at the beginning is a photo of this marshal. But because that promotional photo is grayish-white. In the Star Sea battle 40 years ago, Marshal Leon led his personal guards and won a victory in one fell swoop, bringing eternal peace to the Alliance. But he himself also sacrificed himself in the universe. After the army's triumphant return, the people held white irises and escorted his coffin all the way. His words before his death, "Live for the people and never die without hesitation," were designated as the Alliance Convention. Even 3-year-old children can recite it. But how could such a person who had sacrificed for decades propose marriage to a 70-year-old me? It's simply extremely absurd. Anger welled up in my heart. I said sternly, "You should know that joking in the name of Marshal Leon is punishable by imprisonment." The person on the other end continued to insist. In the serious voice, there was a bit of pain. "I'm sorry. Helen. I swear on my personal reputation the authenticity of this application. But what? But because of the time wormhole, this application was delayed by 50 years, and was only received by us today." 6 When I arrived at the Federal General Bureau, Luke was standing at the door. Obviously 5 years older than me. He didn't look old. Also, with the development of technology, the average life expectancy of the Alliance is also increasing. Even at 75. He looked no different from a middle-aged person. I remembered what the doctor scolded me during each physical examination. General Du. You fought desperately when you were young. Now it's fine. The functions are so damaged that I can't even look at them. Do you have to be the first to do everything even if it's eating shit? Sure enough. Luke's first words when he saw me were, "Chiwo-e. You are old." I nodded. "Luke. You are still as annoying as ever." He smiled. Years of being in a high position made his handsome eyebrows and eyes a bit sharp. But his tone was very gentle. I built a swing in Qingwian and raised a lake of goldfish. You will definitely like it. I sighed. Qingwian has long been changed into a nursery school. I have osteoporosis and can't sit on a swing. I have a tank of goldfish at home. Is there anything else? Luke didn't speak. Okay. You don't say it? Then I will. Luke. You now have power within reach. You are the kind of person who will be covered with the national flag even after death. What can't you let go of? The through draft blew, bringing up the sadness in his eyes. I thought I could let it go. Do you know? I actually haven't thought of you for a long time. I was silent. I could expect it. After all, for power. He could even bet his own life. What is a mere lover? On the day we divorced, I didn't think of you. On the day I climbed to power, I didn't think of you. On the day of my inauguration parade and you were imprisoned, I didn't think of you either. He paused for a while and then said, until one day when I finished today's government affairs and returned home. I leaned tiredly on the car seat. The lights of thousands of households on the street flashed past me. I suddenly thought of you. Regarding this, I gave a sharp comment. Frankly speaking, it's a bit cheap. He smiled bitterly. Yes, it's very cheap. Okay. Move aside later. I have serious business. Leon's marriage application cannot be revoked. I am here today to find a solution. I walked hurriedly. Luke, who had been silent for a long time behind me, spoke again. If we could go back in time, would you not marry me again? Perhaps. 7. I didn't expect that to revoke the marriage application. Leon's consent was needed. So it means it's impossible? After all, I can't go to the universe and piece together Marshal Leon who is broken into pieces. And then say to him, hello. Please revoke your marriage application to me? Originally, it would be fine if it couldn't be revoked. But becoming legal spouses means assuming each other's debts. Who would have thought that the famous marshal in the universe is a poor guy with huge debts? I threw a tantrum. Is this how you treat heroes? Can't you waive his debts? So disappointing. Truly disappointing. The finance minister calmly opened his notebook. But the marshal prepaid the total GDP of the alliance for the next few hundred years. I felt dizzy. What did he do? Sean on the side gently said. Then I will pay it for Helen. The marriage contract is void. I raised my hand. Forget it. I don't need it. After all, when I took one of your potions, you asked me not to compete with Gu Ying. Sean's eyes turned red. The finance minister thought for a while and then said, there is also a way. Perhaps you can use the latest time-space retrospective technology to go back to the time when the marshal applied and stop him. The Secretary General nodded repeatedly. By the way, save the marshal. Don't let him sacrifice again. Goodness. They were waiting for me. Why me? The Secretary General looked kind. We all know that General Du is excellent and outstanding. You have to be the first to do everything even if it's eating shit. What kind of experience is it to still work at 70? I put on my protective clothing and stepped into the cabin with a look of despair. Someone hurried over outside. It was Jay with a face full of anxiety. I don't allow it. It's too dangerous. Come out quickly. I rolled my eyes and pressed the start button. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the year when I was 19. To be precise, I went back to the opening class of that year. Leon, as a special guest, was sitting on the stage, wearing riding clothes. He was as handsome as a military blade. but he happened to have a pair of gentle eyes. When he took off his military uniform, he was like a jade-like gentleman in ancient times in the East. The qualities of literature and martial arts were very harmonious on him. The dean's sharing had ended. Now, do any students have anything else they want to say to General Leon? I don't know if it was because my mind was not clear just after coming back. I stood up with a swish. I want to ask General Wall not to marry me in the future. First there was silence in the auditorium. Then there was a burst of laughter. Is she crazy? Damn it. What kind of dreamer is she? Are the commoners in the lower city all like this? Only then did I realize what I had said. 50 years ago. Class theory was deeply ingrained. Leon came from a century-old family. His reputation was unattainable. Not to mention that I was also wearing the badge from the lower city. My classmates from the lower city all looked at me with disgust, hating that I had lost their face. Even the young Luke beside me clenched his fists. His face was gloomy. Leon on the stage didn't say a word. The taunts in the auditorium became worse. Oh no. Fortunately, after living for so many years, I am already very thick-skinned. General Woe. Be sure to remember. I shrugged and turned to leave the auditorium. 9. After leaving the auditorium, I was happily eating the toasted cold noodles at the school gate. When I got older, I had to avoid certain foods. I haven't eaten this for a long time. I was so craving it. Suddenly, a hand pulled me aside. I looked up. It was Luke with a face full of anger. How can you still eat? There was confusion in his eyes. Also, at this time, he was full of ambition to get ahead. In the past, I understood his ambition and endured patiently, just to pave a bright road for him. I didn't dare to slack off. Didn't dare to make mistakes. When being bullied, I didn't dare to ask him, who was the student council president, for help. I was only afraid that because of me, he would be met with those inexplicable contempt and malice. But then, why? I gave him a blank look and turned to leave. But he pulled me back angrily again. Helen Liu, you let go of my wife. Someone came over angrily. It was actually Jay. You. Are you okay? He looked at me nervously, and then rushed towards Luke. So you were such a jerk when you were young. No wonder my wife abandoned you first. Luke was so stimulated that his eyes turned red. He didn't care about his usual disguise and directly punched Jay. The two of them started fighting. At this time, Sean walked slowly. Helen, haven't you eaten yet? I brought you food from Pinyuan She. There was affection in his eyes. He completely ignored the two people fighting beside him. Jay shouted. See, are you playing the sneaky move? Why didn't you go find your Guying first to continue your relationship? Luke also reacted. Who are you guys? What are you doing looking for Zhuo? There was a trace of panic in his eyes. He hurriedly looked at me. Just then, another voice came. Classmate. Regarding the proposal you made in the morning, I'm sorry I can't follow it. It was actually Leon. As soon as he finished speaking, the faces of the three people behind me turned pale and they were extremely angry. Leon was very tall. When walking beside me, he could block half of the scorching sun. The steaming water vapor and summer dampened a few strands of his hair. They hung softly on his forehead. Who would have thought that he, who was known as the Thunder Eagle, actually had soft hair? Wouldn't he have to do styling every day when going out? I laughed out loud. He looked down helplessly. Don't laugh. Watch the road. I teased him. What will the general do if I still laugh? He thought for a while. Then I will tell your school principal? I laughed even louder. Has anyone ever complained that the general is not good at joking? There was a bit of embarrassment in his amber eyes. Many people have complained. How do you know? I suddenly remembered that after he rescued me, he apologized to me. Sorry. In a hurry. I thought of your speech in the morning, so I pretended to be your fiancé first. This person must have a very kind heart. I looked at Leon's smile. Then I thought of that grayish-white photo on the news in the original time and space. A bit of sadness welled up in my heart. In the original timeline, I had met Leon a few times. Once was when he gave a speech on the army going to war. Once was during a simulation exercise when he helped me up when I fell on the runway. Another time was at the military department. At that time, as an intern, I watched him, who was a general, arguing firmly for the rights of the people in the lower city. I had heard about him many times. It was only today that I got close to him. Only then did I find that those rumors were a bit false. The Marshal Leon who had fought in the Starry Sea and had millions of corpses. He was clearly a young man with soft hair who wasn't good at joking. Okay. Classmate do. I have to go to the military department. I wish you success in your studies. Leon nodded to me. Then he said solemnly, if anyone harasses you again, you can tell the school or you can find the military department's security department. Can I find General Woe? I smiled. He hesitated. His face was a little flushed by the scorching sun. Then he immediately became serious. Yes. My heart skipped a beat. Then I heard him say, protecting Alliance citizens is my duty. His eyes were as serious as taking an oath under the Alliance flag. I laughed out loud completely. The noble families of the Alliance were arrogant and selfish. My classmates entered the military academy, just for a reputation, for convenience of promotion in the future. But this Leon, who came from the top of the noble families, actually had a pure heart. So, he could sacrifice his life in that battle. Not for reputation, but for the people. How could this not be the fortune of the Alliance? But at this time, that black and white photo became clearer and clearer in my mind, making people inexplicably uncomfortable. When we parted, I waved. Leon, he turned back. What's wrong? I said. Summer is long and full of vitality. I wish your life be the same. He also smiled. The same wish. 17 After the opening of the Alliance Military Academy, there will be a physical fitness test. 100-kilometer cross-country race. Those who fail to meet the standard will be eliminated. In that time before, Luke was ambushed and injured his leg. For the last 30 miles, I carried him on my back. He lay on my back, trembling slightly and crying silently. I can't remember what he said at all. I only remember that the moon in the forest that day was very bright. Just one look at it filled people with expectations. But later, when I opened the door and saw Luke's body entangled with someone else, I never looked at the moon again. Luke once asked me why I could forgive others but always had resentment towards him. I thought for a while and said, probably because you made it impossible for me to love the moon anymore. As soon as I saw the moon, I would think of that flesh color when he was intertwined with others desperately. I understood his ambition and his desire for power. But he clearly had other ways. Yet he chose the one that made me feel the most unbearable. Your actions made me feel like I am a very bad person. After listening, Luke just smoked a cigarette in silence and then turned and left. The next day, Luke became the glamorous Luke on TV again. No one knew that last night. He trembled and uttered a hug to his ex-wife. Later, I told this past event as a joke to my students. A group of young girls chattered. I spit. Disgusting scumbag. I didn't expect General Du to be a love-struck person when she was young. I smiled and nodded. Yes. At that time, it was like being possessed. I felt that being with him could resist everything. Then now? If there is another chance, will the general still carry that scumbag out of the jungle? Impossible. Let him go quickly. That's right. I didn't expect to really have another chance. 12 Luke was still a bit angry with me because of what happened before. Chiwo-e. Where did you meet those unseemly people? I was speechless. Can you change your way of speaking? No wonder you were ambushed. He frowned. Why did you suddenly say this? I looked at the young Luke in front of me. He was tall and straight with a very good appearance. Except for the slightly whitened corners of his clothes, and the deep-seated inferiority complex in his eyes. He didn't look like someone from the lower city at all. Or rather, he never was. When we were young, the dean held us in her arms. In the summer night breeze. She asked about our wishes. Some said they wanted endless food. Some said they wanted a warm house. Only Luke said he wanted to go out and see. The dean sighed and then asked me, "What about our Shawoi?" I was a bit embarrassed. "Can I only make one wish?" The dean teased me. "Why? Does our Shawoi have many wishes?" I nodded. "I want to be with the dean and all of you forever. I want everyone to live a good life here. But I also want to be with Brother Lou. Otherwise, he will be too lonely by himself." I was still in distress. Luke gently touched my head. "Follow me, brother. Brother will fulfill all your wishes. So Shawoi doesn't have to be so conflicted." Alas! If there was an anti-IRFOD system at that time, I would block Luke first. I came back to my senses and said to Luke, "Don't go to the gym tomorrow. Don't go no matter who calls you. If you don't want to be eliminated in the cross-country training." Luke was puzzled. "What about you? Won't you be in a group with me?" Is that 100 kilometers something a human can run? Who wants to do it again? No. Take care of yourself. Luke's face completely changed. "Chiwo-e. Did I make you angry that day? But you know, I have no choice. You haven't contacted me since that day. Are you angry because I talked to classmate by way? This time traveling is not good in this aspect. I have to experience the bad things from the past again." I patted Luke. No, I am very happy. After all, in the future, you will also marry her." The darkness in Luke's eyes grew heavier. "Chiwo-e. Don't make such jokes." I also became serious. "Luke, no one has the obligation to accompany you forever. Moreover, you and I are not on the same path." Luke staggered a few steps and said in an unsteady breath, How can you say such things?" I silently let out a breath. On the day Luke ascended to the chief's seat, I was imprisoned. The prison van passed by his flower car. He didn't even look at me. He only sent a message through his secretary. "Miss Stu, you should know that you and the chief are not on the same path." I just returned Luke's words to him. Why did he look like he couldn't bear it? Luke turned his head away. His eyes were full of disgust. "Don't you like me anymore?" "Rarely. Really rarely." At this time, Luke still needed love. But how can I tell him at this time? For someone like me who has lived half a life, love or hate is the least important thing. I didn't speak. I just returned the medal he once gave me to his hand. That inferior medal was exchanged by Luke with a first-class merit. Luke was stunned. "Why do I feel like you are saying goodbye to me forever?" I said. How could it be? But in my heart, I was thinking, goodbye. Goodbye. In fact, I agreed to this time travel retrospective for both Leon's reason and my own regrets. If it stops here, wouldn't there be less ugliness between me and Luke? I waved vigorously and turned and walked into the sunset. After being with Luke for so long, it's time to go back to the lower city and take a look. 13 Before I had walked a few steps, I met Sean. The summer evening wind came in a mess, making pedestrians stagger. Sean's clothes were meticulous as always. He always looked gentle and refined. "Finished talking?" He smiled gently. I nodded. "Of course." He smiled again. His beautiful eyebrows and eyes were even more affectionate in the late summer. "So do I still have a chance?" Do you remember? When you met me. It was also on such a night." "Yes. On that day after Luke's affair." I rushed out. At the lost corner of the street, I plunged into Z and Lan's arms. Later, when I checked into the sanatorium, I found out that he was the most outstanding doctor in the Alliance. He really led me out of the most desperate time. But in the second year of our marriage, I found out that he had a white moonlight that he could never forget. Every time he wavered, it was like a cut on my life-saving straw. Since divorcing you, I have regretted it. Whether you believe it or not. From that moment on, I wanted to win you back. But later you were with Jay. I have been waiting for you. Sean seemed gentle. But in fact, he was a very proud person at heart. His words were true. But why should I turn back? At this time, the street lights came on. There was a girl making a wish around a cake. The strawberry cake with crushed Oreos looked very delicious. The candle with 30 years old on the cake was shining brightly. Her lover surrounded her and sang a birthday song for her with love in his eyes. Sean followed my line of sight and was a bit puzzled. You wants to eat cake? I shook my head. When I was in the most difficult time, I really wanted to be 30 years old. Because the ancients said that one should establish oneself at 30. So I gave a lot of meaning to my 30th birthday. Sean's face turned pale. So do you know? I really look forward to my 30th birthday. His eyes were completely broken. That always confident look was gone. Because on my 30th birthday, he left me behind when the meteor storm came and took Gu Ying away. At that time, even Luke, who was usually not a good person, was angry for me. His expression was cold as he questioned me why I would choose such a person as my second husband. At that moment, I was so embarrassed that I wanted to die. More than that, I was disappointed. It turned out that my 30th birthday was so bad. Sean's eyes were filled with tears. So is there really no chance at all? No. Sean covered his face with his hand and was silent for a long time. Until I was about to leave. He said with tears, I understand. I understand. Do what you want to do. Move forward and never stop again. 14 When I returned to the lower city, a familiar feeling came over me. After being away for so long, I couldn't help feeling sad. The dean was older but still kind. When she saw me, she smiled. Shuo-yi, you're back. She turned to the other side. Children, come quickly. This is your sister Shuo-yi. She is very excellent. She was admitted to the Alliance Military Academy. A group of children in simple clothes surrounded me. How long has it been since I saw such a scene? 10 years? 20 years? Or 50 years? I am actually most afraid of parting. But my life is just a prelude composed of partings. I wiped away the hot tears from the corners of my eyes and held a little girl beside me. Hello? How old are you this year? The little girl smiled with curved eyes. 5 years old. Sister, you smell so good. Just like the big brother who often comes. Both of you smell good. The big brother who often comes? I was puzzled. Who was that? I walked over following their directions and actually saw Jay. He was squatting by the wall, building a swing for the children. When he saw me, he was a bit surprised. You're back? I looked at his coat stained with dust and said, don't you want to wash it? He laughed heartily. No need. I became serious. Why are you here? Don't tell me you are here to do volunteer work. Jay was stunned for a few seconds. There was a bit of grievance in his eyes. Do you suspect that I am using them to threaten you? I had a headache and pinched the bridge of my nose. Then why are you here? Jay. This person has all the qualities of a nobleman's child. Although he seems easygoing on the surface, he is definitely not someone who would take the initiative to step into the lower city. At this time, a little boy ran over with a dirty toy car. Brother, this car is broken. Jay took it as usual. Really? Brother will fix it. His expression was serious without any perfunctoriness. The big and small spent a long time before finally fixing that toy car. Jay also showed a happy smile amid the cheers of the little boy. He turned his head. I understand why you wanted to divorce me desperately no matter what. How so? He raised his face. In fact, you understand that I have never had a real relationship with those people. But I was young then and only wanted excitement and freedom. Yes. But after living for 30 years, I just want to stop and have a stable life. Jay's expression was calm. Now I understand. Ordinary life is also a kind of love. How can ordinary love not be love? But when people encounter love, they only see its flourishing flowers and intense passion. It takes a long time before they realize that in ordinary days, that bowl of warm porridge on the breakfast table is also love. I didn't speak, quietly feeling the tranquility and relief of this summer moment. In the distance, children were playing, and Jay and I looked at each other in silence. After a long time, he forced a smile. I don't understand why Luanzi suddenly gave up. I don't care. I must win you back. He smiled brightly, but there were tears shining in his eyes. I also smiled. Then good luck to you. 15 After dealing with all kinds of obsessions from before, I just wanted to complete the task early and go home early. It's naturally good to be young again. But after all, I have my own rhythm. 20 years old is great. 70 years old is also not bad. Every age is a life that I should experience. But it's really too difficult to meet Leon. Moreover, looking at how he is towards me now, I can't figure out why he would propose marriage to me. After waiting and waiting, I finally waited until he led the army to our school. I heard that they will conduct a 1-month drill here. This time, instead of reporting to the battleship class with Luke, I chose the technical repair class. It can be said to be very leisurely. As a high-ranking general, Leon's activities naturally won't overlap with ours. Even their cafeteria is a special cafeteria for them. So every day I had to take a long detour, cross half of the school, and stroll around the entrance of the special cafeteria a few times. But I didn't even meet Leon once. Doesn't he need to eat? Until Friday. We finished class early. I hurriedly ran to the entrance of the cafeteria and met the army coming to eat. Leon was walking at the front. His face looked a bit anxious. There were soldiers behind him calling him. General. Not eating with us again? Leon shook his head. No. You guys go eat. Hey. This guy. Isn't he eager to eat? That soldier shouted again. No way. General. Is the student cafeteria that delicious? Why do you go there every day? Leon's expression remained unchanged. Yes. The chicken legs there are very delicious. Where are the chicken legs on the student cafeteria menu? I was really puzzled and couldn't help asking out loud. Leon's expression became solemn. At first, there was panic in his eyes. Then there was some excitement. Long time no see. Classmate do. Long time no see. General Woe. Do you like the food in the student cafeteria? He nodded calmly. Yes. It's very delicious. Now I really admired him. After all, eating in the student cafeteria is known as one of the 10 orchards of military academies. General Woe actually thinks it's delicious. He is really a tough person. No wonder I never meet you. He was a bit surprised. The light in his eyes became brighter. Do you want to meet me? I nodded. If I don't meet you, how can I talk to you about the marriage contract? He showed a big smile. That's great. Me, huh? What do you mean? He coughed twice. I mean today's weather is really nice. He lowered his eyes. Behind him was the vast sky. The blue and the green made the best background painting. And there was a touch of red on his ear. If I still can't see that he is interested in me, then I have lived 70 years in vain. So I asked him, do you like me? He suddenly raised his head. His eyes were eager but he stammered. After a long time, he first reached behind him, then suddenly stretched his hand in front of me. His face looked as if he was facing death. No way. No way. Just asking one question won't lead to me being shot. Right? But when I took a closer look, he was holding 2 movie tickets in his hand. Me. Giving movie tickets with the posture of shooting. As expected of you, Leon. Before I could react, he said seriously again. Classmate do. Can I ask you to go watch a movie with me? I desperately pressed down his hand that wanted to salute me. Full of helplessness. Didn't anyone tell me that you are such a martial Leon? What about being decisive and resolute? But unexpectedly, I didn't dislike it. I laughed heartily. Sure. The breeze was gentle. But Leon was about to burst into flames. He looked at me blankly and said, "Then I'll pick you up tomorrow." 16 the next day. Leon was waiting downstairs early. His heroic posture attracted many people to look back frequently. But I laughed as soon as I saw him. "General, is it required to dress so formally to watch a movie according to your regulations?" Leon in his general's uniform was extremely handsome. But there were too many medals of honor on him. He looked like a glittering display stand. A new student passed by and exclaimed, "Damn, is this the Walking Plus version of First Class Merit?" Leon looked like he wanted to find a crack to hide in. "Sorry. They said you would like this." I reached out and touched the medal on his shoulder. "No. The medal is very beautiful. The general is also very powerful. But isn't it very heavy like this? Let's take it off." This sentence made Leon smile all the way. I can't bear to look. When the movie ended, Leon said, "I'll take you back." But his eyes were extremely pitiful. I laughed. "I heard that a new restaurant has opened recently. Does the general want to try it?" He quickly nodded. At this time, a sudden urgent call interrupted him. He was a bit annoyed. "It's okay. Answer it." Leon picked up the phone. His expression became more and more solemn. Later, there was even a murderous look on his face. "What's wrong?" He frowned. "There's something. I'd better take you back first." After sending me downstairs to the dormitory, he carefully told me again, "Don't run around recently. Contact me anytime if there's anything." I looked at him. I had a feeling that something had happened. But Leon wouldn't say. So I could only say, "You too. The meal we didn't eat today. I'm waiting for you to invite me next time." He was stunned for a few seconds. Then he showed a youthful smile. "Yes." After saying goodbye to Leon, I turned and walked towards the dormitory. But suddenly I received a message. From Luke. "There are infected people in the lower city. Where are you?" Chuo 17. I felt a wave of dizziness. In the original timeline, infected people would only appear 5 years later. Why did it start so early this time? Could it be the butterfly effect caused by my time travel retrospective? But in any case, this time, I can't miss the opportunity to rescue the people in the lower city again. I put on my equipment and secretly rushed to the lower city. When I saw the tragic state of the lower city again, it still made me almost collapse. Full of broken limbs and blood. The source of infection in the lower city comes from the aliens in the Black Star Abyss. Humans can be said to be helpless in the face of this infection. For a while, the lower city was like a living hell. I passed by the panicked crowd and rushed to the nursery. Fortunately, the dean and the others were not injured. The dean was very excited when she saw me. "You child. Why did you come here? It's so dangerous." I didn't have time to explain more. I just said, "I'll take you to evacuate." As I spoke, someone walked in with a gun. It was Leon in military uniform. "Why are you here? I'll have someone send you back." His face was anxious. He turned to leave. I stopped him. "I can't leave. I am a military academy student. I have the obligation to participate in this rescue." He frowned deeply. "We are here. Military academy students are not needed to go to the battlefield." I looked at him directly without giving in. In the stalemate, another soldier rushed in. "General, the infection tide is coming this way. We have to evacuate quickly." I made a quick decision. Let's evacuate first. On the way of evacuation, Leon's frown never relaxed. He looked at me several times as if he wanted to say something. I sighed. "General, if you are dissatisfied with my unauthorized trip to the lower city, I am willing to accept any punishment. Leon frowned even more. His eyes were complex and gentle. No. Why would you think so? But seeing that the general has been, he looked at me and gave a wry smile softly. I'm just blaming myself. As the leader of the military department, I failed to deal with the turmoil in time. And I even let a military academy student like you come to help. I was stunned. In the original turmoil, I did the same thing. But afterwards, the result was being publicly criticized in front of the whole school. Overestimating oneself. Doesn't she think she is a hero? Even Luke couldn't understand. He stood aside and coldly accused. Are you out of your mind? But it was my relatives and friends who were massacred. It was my hometown that gave birth to me, and raised me that was in disaster. How could I stand by indifferently? Looking at Leon's self-blaming expression, I slowed down my breathing and said softly, You have done very well, General. Really very good. He smiled shyly. Really? In the next second, his expression suddenly changed. He quickly pulled me behind him. Be careful. The infected person hit by him knelt in a pool of blood and roared. The ferocious look was terrifying. But before we could catch our breath, the infected person actually staggered to his feet. It was over. He was immune to machine guns. In the next second, countless red dots suddenly lit up at the corner. A chill climbed up my scalp along my toes. Those red dots were all the eyes of the infected people. Damn it. Leon cursed softly. Quickly took off his protective armor and put it on me. You go first. Then he twisted the neck of an infected person who rushed up and took out the crystal nucleus behind his neck. The infected person convulsed for a while, and then fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, Leon had actually dealt with a small group of infected people. But the tide of people was still coming continuously. This was not a solution at all. Fortunately, Leon's subordinates arrived in time. They brought the latest biological reagent gun and solved the siege of the infected people. As night fell, Leon and I sat around the campfire in the camp for a short rest. The cooking smoke rose, burning away a bit of the heaviness brought by the killing. A dark-faced soldier scolded and laughed. Damn, General. Killing zombies with bare hands today. Other soldiers also laughed and shouted. Yes, General. So fierce. That dark-faced soldier winked. Hey. What do you know? This is called showing a man's masculinity. Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by a sudden stone. Damn, General. With your strength, throwing a stone is like shooting me. I turned to look at Leon, but he looked innocent, with a gentle and bright appearance. The protective clothing on his body had not been taken off yet. Carrying someone's body temperature, it seemed to warm people's hearts. I suddenly had the urge to talk. Across the fire, I said to Leon, Actually, I am from the future. In reality, I am already 70 years old. But suddenly I received a marriage application from you. I was told that you wanted to marry me a long time ago. Damn. That dark-faced soldier sprayed out a mouthful of wine. Then he gave me a thumbs up. Your way of chatting up is higher than our generals. Come and see. This is the master. Lying sounds like love words. I wanted to cry but had no tears. I said that this time travel retrospective plan was not reliable. Who wouldn't think I was a liar after hearing this? But when I turned around, I saw Leon's eyes shining. You have a good eye. That dark-faced soldier sprayed out another mouthful of wine. Gave to thumbs up. Perfect match. Perfect match. Everyone laughed. Among them, Leon laughed the most brightly. The campfire blurred his outline. His eyes became more and more charming. Even his eyebrows were full of unconcealed joy. But suddenly a voice poured into my mind. Reminder to the time traveler. The course of history cannot be changed. Please complete the task in time and return to the real world. That voice became clearer and clearer. With a tremor and reaching directly to the heart, my consciousness was pulled away. It was like I was talking to them through a vacuum cover. The noise around me became more and more distorted. The scene became more and more blurred. Only Leon's smile was eternally frozen. So clear and so full of vitality. It was not until he suddenly held my hand, at the moment of contact with his palm, that I finally landed. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I will come to you with light." 19. The military department solved part of the infection tide. Zealand King also came with the personnel from the medical department. With the experience of the previous life, he developed a more useful potion. A few days later, most of the infected areas were recovered. Only the east side of the city was left. And there was a school there. It was the gathering point for survivors. When the army heavily guarded the east side of the city, they felt extremely strange. Because here, it was really too quiet. So quiet that it was terrifying. The east side of the city was the most severely infected area. But there was no trace of an infected person on the road. Even the bloodstains disappeared completely. This strange situation made the old marshal frown. Until we walked into the school, this fear reached its peak. All the survivors also disappeared. But clearly an hour ago, they were still sending out distress messages. My heart beat faster and faster. Just then, a huge black crack slowly appeared above the sky, almost spanning the entire sky. A mouse popped out of a hole. As soon as it poked its head out, it was sucked into the crack, without leaving any trace. Everyone was shocked by the terrifying sight in front of them. People finally understood where the survivors had gone. They were swallowed alive by this crack in the sky. The battle of the Black Abyss in the previous life finally arrived. When I found Leon, he was sitting motionless in front of the screen in the control room, just like in the original timeline. In just a few days, various places in the Alliance had fallen one after another. The alarm prompts in the control room kept ringing. He hadn't closed his eyes for several days. When he saw me, he was still a bit stunned. "Why don't you rest? What if you collapse from exhaustion like this?" He looked at me quietly for a while. Then he said, "On my way to the military department today, I saved a little girl who had lost both parents. But in the next second, she was swallowed alive by the Black Abyss right in front of me." I sadly placed my hand on his shoulder. "I understand this feeling. The Battle of the Black Abyss was the heaviest stroke in the history of the Alliance. No matter how long it has been, it can never be forgotten. Even some surviving soldiers still chose to commit suicide after living for many years. Seeing one's own compatriots being devoured. That kind of torture I can never forget. The Black Abyss is an invasion plan that the aliens have been planning for many years. It was born by gathering all the dark matter in the universe. At first, the aliens only wanted to use it to devour the territory of other civilizations. But later, its power began to get out of control. No one could limit it anymore." Leon suddenly looked up. "I remember you are from the future. I will not mention the marriage application to you again. Go home." At that moment, his eyes were firm, overlapping with that black and white photo many years later. I subconsciously refused. Even felt angry. But why is it like this? Didn't I come for this time travel retrospective just to complete the task of canceling the marriage contract? Do I really have to abandon my original real life for one person? Stay in a parallel time and space? And even destroy the course of history? But suddenly another voice sounded. "By the way, save Marshal Leon. Don't let him sacrifice again." Yes. Am I really here for the so-called marriage contract? I am here for the regrets of thousands of people in the Alliance. Those who serve the people are worthy of being remembered forever. And even more worthy of being saved forever. Leon should not be buried alone in the nameless universe. I raised my eyes. "Leon, I understand your forbearance and love. But what I hope more is to be on an equal footing with you." 20. There is only one way to solve the Black Abyss. That is to go to its deepest center and destroy its power core. But it itself has the destructive power to devour everything. All substances that enter its center will be squeezed, torn apart, until they completely dissipate. Leon applied to go alone. This is the optimal solution. On the day of farewell, everyone shed tears. I stood by his side. I'll go with you. I stopped his opposing gaze. I have experience. No one knows the location of the power core of the Black Abyss better than me. If I go with you, this is also the optimal solution. The dark-faced soldier gave a thumbs up again, crying uncontrollably. This is truly a perfect match. The road to the center of the Black Abyss is to be bumpy. Before we were even halfway through the journey, we lost contact with the command center. The power of the Black Abyss destroyed the circuit. There was silence on the spaceship. Leon held me in his arms and said softly, "I'm sorry." I leaned against his chest and laughed muffled. Why are you always apologizing? He secretly kissed the top of my head. Because love always feels indebted. I was so angry that I laughed. Okay. Have you been studying internet love words again? In the darkness. His face was extremely red. In the second half of the journey, the squeezing feeling became more and more severe. This also indicated that we were getting closer and closer to the power core. Finally, a burst of white light lit up in front of us. A square nuclear energy floated quietly in the darkness. At this time, the protective clothing was useless. The feeling of pressure and tearing was implanted into the bone marrow. Even every blood vessel was screaming in pain. Leon took the lead to open the cabin door and walked out. At the moment I was about to go down, he immediately locked the cabin door and started the return program of the spaceship. All my words were blocked. Leon took a deep look at me. Then he walked towards that power core. Leon. As he detonated the power core, the Black Abyss began to collapse. Even time was sucked in. Leon's figure was elongated. Like an old movie being slowed down. I saw him walking by my side. His soft hair scattered in the summer wind. I saw him walking towards me in military uniform. Clearly in a high position. But there was an uncontrollable, flustered look of excitement on his face. I saw his flickering eyes and unstoppable love in his eyebrows beside the campfire. Until the next second, I saw him in protective clothing. His eyes were still gentle. His love did not decrease by half. He just said softly, "In fact, the food in the student cafeteria is really unpalatable." 21 In the repair cabin. Leon was in a deep sleep. I just took one look and turned to leave. I was firmly held back by that dark-faced soldier named Ryan. "My sister. Have pity on our Marshal. If he wakes up and finds that his wife has run away, he might die again." I rolled my eyes. What does it have to do with me? Why didn't he think that I was his wife when he locked me in the flight cabin? As soon as I finished speaking, Leon in the repair cabin sat up. His eyes lit up again. "Wife." I ignored him. He was aggrieved. "I won't dare next time." I glared at him. Some people are already marshals now. What can't they do in the future? His attitude became more respectful. Becoming a marshal is because the salary is high. So I can better support my wife. Okay. His attitude of admitting mistakes is still good. Leon came closer. What about ex-husband brother Lou? Has he woken up? I was stunned. He passed away. Speaking of which, Leon was able to come back alive partly because of Luke. At the moment he was about to be torn apart by the Black Abyss. Luke also arrived at the center of the Black Abyss. And he gave his jumper to Leon. And he himself, like Leon in the original timeline, turned into pieces and scattered in the universe. Luke said to me before he died, "I had a dream. In the dream, I lived half of my life. As I had imagined, I became famous and successful. With children and grandchildren all around. I even became the chief of the Alliance. But by my side, there is no longer you." He burst into tears. "Shiwo-e, when did we drift apart?" I couldn't answer. Finally, Luke waved at me. "I never told you. You have always been worthy of the best love. Shiwo-e must be happy." I nudged Leon. "Why are you about to cry and laugh at the same time?" His expression was complex. "TSK. You don't understand the feeling of being saved by a rival in love." While they were joking around, Sean and Jay also walked in. Leon held my hand and greeted them symbolically. Ex-husband brother Z. Ex-husband brother G. Sean J. Sean's face twisted for a moment. Then he immediately returned to normal. Shi Wo E. Is the task completed? Should we go back? Jay also chimed in. Yes. After all, the retrospective has time requirements. You should know that we cannot coexist into time and space. Leon held my hand tightly. Looking panicked. I sighed. How come after escaping the deadly stage of the Black Abyss, we still can't escape separation? Leon's tears were about to fall. Wife. Then what about me? Can I go back with you? Sean sighed. Marshall. The time tunnel will tear you into pieces again. Seeing the really sad atmosphere between us, Jay finally couldn't help it. You. Don't listen to Z. He is talking nonsense. Sean. Whose side are you on exactly? Jay told me. In the original timeline, Luke infinitely extended my retrospective time with his mental power. That is to say, I can choose to stay in this world forever. He said this is what he owes you. Let you not have any burden. I don't know how to describe this feeling. It's not touched. Nor is it angry. It's like seeing a cloud on an ordinary summer day. After seeing it, you will forget it. There is no love or hate. What about you? Do you have to go back? Sean said that due to years of biological experiments, he had a terminal illness. He only hoped that in the remaining days, he could be brave once and see the scenery he had missed before. That's good. What about you? Jay looked proud. I got hired as a teacher at the nursery. He thought for a while and added, if you misses me, remember to come back and see me. Leon snorted. You are also talking nonsense. Jay. Summer is long. There is bright sunlight shining through the window. I looked out of the window. In the distance, the trees were lush and green, full of vitality. I still have a long and good life.